Hi everybody, my name is Ajay Sharma and welcome back to Ajay Drives. Now, you might have seen this car in a couple of videos before this, and I want to get straight to the point. This is going to be essentially an ownership review of mine, which will cover all of the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things that I have sort of experienced while owning this car for about the last 7 months. I've had this car for 7 months. I've done close to 9,000 kilometers in this car, and that kind of really gives you a huge gauge on everything about the car, the pros, the cons. Lets you get to know a lot of things about the car itself. So today I'm really going to be taking care of all of the different questions that people might have about owning a matte car. Some of these things are going to be exclusive to the matte car, some of these things are going to be exclusive to the 1.4 liter DCT and the turbo engine that's inside of this car. But a lot of these things can be general to every single Seltos that's out there. So again, some things might be specific, some are going to be general. So I'm going to start off with talking about the looks of this car once again. So the good thing about this car is really the way that it looks. So if you look at it from every single angle, it's got one of the best looking exteriors that I've seen in a very long time. I've said this in my review, and if you do want to check that review out, you can go ahead and click on the screen right now. I have said this in a review in the past, but really the one thing that really hasn't gotten off, or something that hasn't bored me yet, is really the way that this car looks. It is a very good looking car, and every part of about it, the blacked out accents, the headlights, the tail lights, the side angles, everything about this car really just looks so beautiful. Apart from that, there's also these wheels. These wheels have honestly been for some reason a big highlight to me. They're 18 inches and they just have a very nice design to go along with it. I really am in love with these wheels and I've really liked them for a very long time. Now that is a very good thing. It looks very nice, it's got great wheels, but one of the things that really do not work with it is the maintenance of this paint. This is a question I did get quite often from everybody who watched the first video that I put out on this car. How is it to maintain? There is a story behind this particular paint. I actually thought for a very long time that I'd be able to maintain the matte paint of this car very easily. It won't cause me any issues moving forward. I bought a matte shampoo. I bought a lot of different supplies to make sure that I can maintain this car as well as I'd like to. I bought a pressure washer. I cleaned it once a week. I did everything. I bought the plushest cloths. I did every single thing that one could possibly do to ensure that the car stays maintained very well. But honestly, a few days before this video, I actually saw a small tiny little rock chip on the bumper of this car. Again, not a big deal, a very tiny rock chip. But what people may or may not understand is something that small can really be polished out, buffed out, waxed out in a car that's glossy. But in a matte car, you really just have to repaint the whole panel. There's no other choice that you have. So that kind of pushed me at that point to finally get a paint protection film on this car. I, as a car enthusiast, as a person who put all his efforts into maintaining this car, could not take care of it, and I had to get a paint protection film. So that is something that's very new on this car right now. It's got a full paint protection film. I got that from Kia, and I got the 10-year warranty one, which is the thickest. It's self-healing. It's got all of the abilities, and it cost me close to 1,35,000, 1,40,000 rupees from the Kia showroom in Bangalore. So that's one of the things that you're going to have to understand if you're trying to purchase a matte car. You have to put a paint protection film on it. You can think that you can maintain it. You can think that you can take care of it. You're going to have all kinds of ideas about taking care of it, but really, at the end of it, you're going to have to put a film on it. There's no two ways about it. So another thing that I'd like to mention is very often when I went scouring through the internet prior to buying the car, I did hear a lot about the headlights. People every now and then, well, not a lot, I did hear every now and then a couple of people talk about how the headlights weren't powerful enough. And that's a point I'd like to fully combat, because I have used this car predominantly only at night. I do not drive much in the day. I drive mostly at night. The headlights are perfectly all right. And I'm saying this after being an owner of white headlights, which were HIDs, aftermarket, extremely powerful headlights in the car that I had prior to this one. I can tell you HIDs have a power level of their own. They are a little bit more powerful, but the LEDs that come in this car are plenty to light up the road. They're better than most other cars that I keep driving on the road. These headlights are fantastic. They do a great job lighting up the road. I've never ever felt underconfident when I'm driving in the middle of the night, whether it's at speed, whether it's at dirty roads, whatever it might be. The headlights have always done me really good. So I think that's an extremely good point about the car. They're great headlights. Now, moving from a good point to a very bad point, the next thing I'd like to talk about is the mileage of this car. The mileage on this car is absolutely terrible. It is a 1.4 liter turbo petrol engine, and this engine is extremely powerful, makes so much power, and it has the best driving experience ever. But it doesn't have the best of both worlds. You're gonna get the power, you're gonna get the fun, but you're not gonna get any mileage out of it. With fuel prices being the way they are today, filling this car up with a full tank is always a, a big problem. There's a shot that I'd put out on this as well. I'm going to link that somewhere. But it is very expensive to fill fuel in this car, and it doesn't give a lot of mileage. In the 9,000 kilometers that I have done on this car, it has given me 8.7 kilometers to the liter. That is the exact mileage. That is combined city, highway, night, morning, everything driving, and that's not good. It's not good at all. The mileage on this car is really not that good, and if you're gonna want a playful car which you're gonna have fun with, you're not gonna get mileage out of it. That's just the fact of it. Another thing I'd like to mention, and this is a good point, is the exhaust of this car. Every second or third person that I meet lets me know that the fact that this car lets me know about the fact that this car's exhaust note is very nice. People really like the exhaust note of this car, and I agree with them. I actually had a friend of mine drive this car right in front of me just to see how it actually sounds outside, because the cabin is quite insulated, and the exhaust sounds marvelous. It's actually a very nice sounding exhaust. Obviously, it's not sporty, it's not like an aftermarket exhaust, but for a stock exhaust in a regular car, it sounds pretty good. So that's another good point. One other thing that's in the exterior of this car that I wanted to point out, which I did not like, was a bad thing, is for some reason the skid plate that they've put underneath the bumper here, it is extremely low. So as well as, I mean, the ground clearance of this car is really great. It's sitting at a very high and good number. The ground clearance of this car, I think at 190 mm, I'm not sure. But the approach angle of this car gets ruined because of that skid plate. It is set too low. I think I've hit 4 to 5 different rocks, which even sedans can take care of because of that skid plate. Again, it's out of view, nobody can really see it, but it's very annoying because it's like in there and it's too low to the ground. It hits everything. All right, so now that we're on the inside of the car, I'm going to start pointing out some bad things about the interior of the car. So a lot of it has to do with this infotainment system right here. I really do like the infotainment system, don't get me wrong. It's a very nice infotainment system. But there are two separate instances where I got very upset. So the first instance is the screen didn't give me any actual warning that it was performing a software update, and it decided to go ahead with the software update. And when the software update was happening, I was still driving the car. I was still going through the regular parts of my day, and because its processor probably had a lot of load because of the software update, a lot of things stopped working in the infotainment for a brief 2 to 3 hours, but it was very annoying for those 2 to 3 hours. Now, what happened was, when I put the car in reverse, the 360-degree cameras, rear camera, nothing came on. Everything turned off, and it never actually switched on. And the weird part was, when I was driving, about half an hour later, the cameras came on. So it's like it remembered that I put the car in reverse gear, and after that, it switched it on randomly when I was driving. So it was taking my commands much later than they were supposed to go into the infotainment system. The next one was the volume. I increased the volume of my music, and the volume increased fine. There was no problem there. But it indicated that the volume went high, I think 25 minutes later, when that software update was going on. So that infotainment glitch is something that I did not like. I don't like the fact that when your infotainment is software updating, by the way, without your permission or without any warning that it may slow down, it did all of these things in my drive. I did not like that. So the infotainment glitch was really a problem. The next thing is Kia Connect, which when I think prior to this was called Uvo Connect. Now, what happened with that was, I was one day, I think, demonstrating the features of this car to somebody, and I left the key inside of the car. I went outside and I used my phone to lock the car. Now, typically, I don't think cars allow that. Cars should not allow you to lock the car when the key's inside of the car, but that's fine. It allowed me to do it. I did it on the app. It happened. Now, after I locked it, for some reason, the signal of this car went away. There was no signal left in the car. And when I tried to unlock it, it wouldn't unlock. So it remotely locked with the key inside of the car, and I couldn't unlock it after that. I had to drive, I think, 25 kilometers in a borrowed car to go home and get the second set of keys, come back and unlock the car. I get it, the car was parked in a basement. But if it was parked in the basement and it had enough signal to actually lock the car, it should have had the signal to unlock the car. So Kia Connect needs to improve, Uvo Connect needs to improve. That was an extreme problem that I had to face. It was embarrassing, really. So didn't like that one at all. The next thing I'd like to mention is the cup holders in the door pads. Those cup holders or bottle holders are not shaped like bottles or cups. They're very spacious. You can fit at least 3 bottles in there with no problem at all. But they're not really shaped like a bottle or a cup. So what ends up happening is if you put too small a bottle in there, it rattles around. If you put too big a bottle in there, then well, it stays snug, but then there's no space for the rest of the bottle. So the bottle holders in this car really needed to be better shaped. They're not round. They kind of rattle around every time when I put a bottle that it doesn't want in there. So if I don't put a huge bottle that's snugly fit, it's just going to move around because it's not shaped in a round. It's not shaped like a cup holder. These little things bother me quite a bit. So I did not like that. So the next point that I'd like to mention actually has to do with this specific part of the interior that you see right here. So in this specific part of the interior, they've decided to put a lot of piano black materials, which looks fantastic in theory. But this is the section of the car that gets used by your hand a lot. You use it for your gear levers, you use it for your ventilated seats, for your drive modes, you put your phone in here, you put your charging things in here. You do a lot of work around this area. This piano black material tends to scratch a lot. There are places in this car where they've used piano black perfectly, like here below the infotainment system. Nobody puts their hand there that much. It's scratch free, it's clean, it's perfect. But this one right here, I've had this car for 7 months and it's got scratches all over this piano black material. They really should have done a better job deciding what else should have been here in the first place, because this piano black material just gets scratched up. And it's not even like I'm a rough user of this interior. I love this car, I paid for it. But regular usage just scratches this metal material. You can't really do anything about it. And not the best part. Didn't like it very much. All right, so in the back seats, you've got these amazing sort of pockets behind the seats, and they're great. They're good for, again, in theory, but because they're plastic and they're so deep back, what happens is, again, it gives you a luxury car feel. I've seen this in BMWs and everything, but for some reason, if you want to do a simple task like put a bottle in there, it is impossible. You cannot actually put a bottle in there. It doesn't stretch enough over here for you to actually put it in. You have to struggle and it wouldn't go in for the life of it. So they are map pockets, and I think they're only meant for maps. You can't really put anything else in there. While we are talking about the door pads of this car, another thing that's in there is some kind of ambient lighting. Now that ambient lighting does a decent job at night. I think I can still see the lighting every time the door closes. I can see it illuminate. So the ambient lighting is decent and very decent. It's not really the best at night. It is invisible in the day. You cannot see the ambient lights in the day. They really make no sense to have out in the day. And at night also, they do a passable job at best. So the ambient lights in this car, really more of a gimmick to me. Now, one thing that I'd like to talk about that annoys me about every Kia and Hyundai car. I have a Grand i10. I've owned a Creta prior to this, and at this point I have this Kia Seltos as well. They have put the best features in the car. It's got a 360-degree camera, which works brilliantly, by the way. That's another good. But it has literally the worst cost cutting I've ever seen. Why do you have to not put illuminations for your door window switches? That's a very dumb place to cut costs. Like, you've given amazing materials inside, Bose speakers, 360-degree cameras, blind spot monitors, ventilated seats. You have the best of the best, and you decided to cut your costs there in a switchboard without the only switch that's illuminated is the driver's door switch. Very annoying. So moving on to the good things. At this point, I've talked about a lot of bad things about the interior. You might think that there's a lot of bad things, but honestly, there's a brilliant amount of good things as well. First of all, look at this interior. I sit in this car every day. I have been for the past 7 months, and I can't get over how perfectly good this interior looks. So well built, so well put together. I love this interior. I always will. It's such a great interior in my in my thoughts. Now, one of the great features that this car has, which I didn't realize I'd get so used to and fall in love with, are the blind spot cameras. The blind spot cameras that show up in the main gauge cluster of the car look so good. So good. They are so helpful. They're so good in clarity. And I think every car in the car industry at this point needs to adapt having this. It is such a good feature. The next thing I'd like to talk about is this dual clutch transmission. The dual clutch transmission that they've put in this Kia Seltos, it is butter smooth. I don't think I have ever seen cars that change gears this quickly in a very long time. Maybe I haven't driven all of them. Obviously, at this point, I haven't. But the one that they've given for the price that this car comes at, This dual clutch transmission shifts gears lightning quick. I can never tell when the gear is shifted. It is such a good decision. They've done a very good job with that. The next thing I'd like to talk about is sports mode. I like the fact that this car has multiple drive modes because that lets me decide what kind of mood I'm in. The sports mode on this car is really a sports mode. Like, it is going to react to the slightest of throttle inputs that you give it. And yeah, a lot has to do with how powerful the engine is as well. But the tuning that they've given to the car in sports, eco, and normal mode, sports mode is brilliant. It makes the car fly. It does a fantastic job. And I think the sports mode in this car is very, very good. So that's a very good point that I'd like to mention there. Another thing that's really helpful is the tire pressure monitor. Now, I haven't had a car with a tire pressure monitor prior to this, and I've realized a tire pressure monitoring system is extremely helpful in a lot of different driving situations. For example, when you drive on the highway at higher speeds, your tire pressure tends to increase constantly. And I have heard stories of tires bursting on the highway because of how much they heated up and pressurized. You can monitor that in real time when you're using a tire pressure monitoring system. So it's very safe and it's a very convenient feature. The next one is the maps and navigation that comes with this car. The navigation system that is built into this particular unit is so high quality. 3D buildings, fantastic map views, great directions, step-by-step guided directions are given to you over here. Not just here, it's integrated into the 7-inch screen that's in the gauge cluster and the 8-inch heads-up display. It is doing a very good job. These navigation systems don't get enough credit because a lot of us use Google Maps. I personally still prefer a lot of times Google Maps, but that has more to do with the live traffic updates, which I didn't realize also come with this infotainment system. This gives you exact live traffic updates. And the maps and navigation system in this is very high quality. I must mention that. Now, another good, which is last but not the least, I don't actually have anything more to talk about on my list, but one thing that has helped me in these summer days so much are these ventilated seats. These ventilated seats have been an absolute lovely addition that has been given to this car. I love these ventilated seats, and they've done a absolutely fantastic job with those seats. So I think that is my entire list of goods and bads in this car. I think I've covered quite a few things being an owner of this car for about 7 months now. And I think this will give you a great gauge on how many things are great in this car, some of the things that are a little annoying in this car, and some are specific obviously to this 1.4 turbo petrol engine, some are very specific to the fact that this is a matte car, but a lot of things are also general to the Kia Seltos. So that is all of the things I had in mind about this car. Overall, I'm a very satisfied owner. I really love this car quite a bit, and I don't think I will want another one for a very long time. So that's about it. Thank you for watching RJ Drives. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with all of your friends.